476 AD, 4370 AM. This is the year of the fall of Rome. Odovacar, Odoacer in Latin, leads the Germans against Rome, he being the German son of Edecon, the German Hun right-hand man of Attila the Hun, who some believe was responsible for Attila's death. The legions by this date were largely full of Romanized Germans. The invasion and takeover of Rome was not like the attacks in earlier years, like 410 and 455 AD, but the full overthrowing of Roman government. This took place in the 1229th year of Rome, and in the year 1229 BC occurred the fall of Troy, the ancestors of the Romans. At this time the Anno Domini did not exist, but once employed this year became the year 476 AD, a number linked to Israel over and over in the chronology of the world. Rome's founding in 753 BC began with a boy king named Romulus, and at the fall of Rome the Germans defeated the boy emperor Romulus Augustulus. Edecon spared the life of the young Romulus and sent him to live with his mother near Naples. Odovacar became king of Rome, and he gave the regent Euric, king of the Visigoths, all the Roman territories beyond the Alps as far as the ocean. King Euric then formed a loose confederation of European kingdoms in this inherited landmass from Rome of the Visigoths, Heruli, Saxons, Burgundians, Franks, Vandals, Ostrogoths of Pannonia, and Huns. By 485 AD, this northern kingdom of Euric was established, Euric being the father of the famous Alaric. The calendrics for this year identify interactions between Rome and the ancient descendants of Israel. The White Huns in 76 AD invaded northern India, initiating the Saka calendar, this being 400 years before the kin of the Huns, the Germans, took Rome. The history of early Rome involved the rape of the Sabines in 749 BC, exactly 1224 years, half of 2448, before 476 AD, and at the precise midpoint of this 1224-year period was the year 137 BC, when the Celtiberians of Spain in Numantia defeated the Romans, the Celts of Iberia being direct descendants of Phoenician Hebrew peoples. 476 AD was 700 years after the tribes of Cisalpine Gaul assembled and invaded Rome in 225 BC, where at the Battle of Telamon 40,000 Celts were killed. The fall of Rome was 864 years after 389 BC, when the Gauls occupied Rome after having sacked the city. The people of Italy had early on taken in the blood of Esau through Zepho, and then from the assimilation of an Edomite population that migrated to Italia. Rome's anti-Israelite, anti-Jewish and anti-Christian history is a reflection of the anti-Jacob personality of Esau. Rome invested with the spirit of Esau from the founding of Rome in 753 BC, all the way through its fall in 476 AD, and beyond through the building and rise of the Roman Catholic Church, even to modern times in the 21st century. The fall of Rome was exactly a great year, 600 years after Judea defeated Idumea, Edom, and forced the Edomites to convert to Judaism, an event known in biblical prophecy as the marrying of Edom. Jerusalem's problems with the Romans only occurred after Judea took in their enemies, the Edomites. The Great Pyramid was finished in 1080 Annus Mundi, 2815 BC, the sum of 1080 being Israel's calendrical seal and number of Sethite inheritance. The fall of Rome in 476 AD was the 1080th year of Daniel's prophecy of the four empires. The 1080 years beginning in 605 BC, when King Nabopolassar of the Chaldean dynasty of Babylon died and was succeeded by his son, the famous Nebuchadnezzar II. Nebuchadnezzar dreams of the four-empire statue of gold, silver, brass and iron, or Babylon, Persia, Media, Macedon, Greece, and Rome. In that year of 605 BC, the Israelites on the Assyrian frontier were freed, and they founded a state and city called Aria, the origin of the term Aryan. This was exactly 540 years, half of 1080, to the year 65 BC, when the Romans under Pompey defeated Tigranes of Armenia and the Romans acquired as territories Mesopotamia, Syria, and Phoenicia, all of Judea falling under Rome. Judea would be formally annexed in 63 BC. Counting 540 years after 65 BC was the year 476 AD, when the distant kin of Judea, the descendants of the ancient Israelites now called Germans, Yermani, conquered the Iron Empire. In the prophecy of Daniel, the empire of Rome ended with 10 toes of iron mixed with miry clay, meaning 10 kingdoms having Roman culture but different blood. The fall of Rome was by the Romanized Germans of the 10 kingdoms of Europe in 476 AD. The 10 toes are an extension of the culture of Rome through 10 distinct sovereign peoples. We now defer to the erudition of Joseph S. Van Dyke, who in 1871 AD wrote, quote, "Nor are the prophecies mere isolated predictions of disconnected events. The portraiture of the future given by the prophets is like the vivid description of a landscape viewed from a commanding eminence." Unquote. Van Dyke published the opinion that the researchers even in his day believed that Daniel's prophecy concerned 10 kingdoms that would arise out of the ashes of the Roman Empire, and that these 10 kingdoms, according to Daniel's prediction, quote, "shall not cleave one to another," unquote, meaning that the 10 kingdoms will never become one consolidated empire in Europe, unquote, as history has clearly demonstrated. Never has all of Europe been ruled under one empire. The historian and philosopher Niccolo Machiavelli wrote that the 10 kingdoms after the fall of Rome were Lombards, Longbeards, the Franks, Gauls, Burgundians, Ostrogoths, Visigoths, Vandals, Heruli, Suevi, the Saxons, and the Huns. Amazingly, Machiavelli left no hint in his books, The Art of War, The Prince, or the Discourses, that he was aware of the prophecy of Daniel and its connection to these 10 kingdoms, or to the historical fact that these same 10 peoples were descended from the ancient Israelites. The 10 kingdoms in Europe would later provide progeny that 1300 years later would found the prophesied Empire of Ephraim, the United States of America in 1776 AD, Empire of Adoption, founded by 13 colonies in North America, where the archaic 13 clans of the Mayan originated. These 13 colonies mirror the 13 tribes of Israel, the 12 tribes plus Joseph, Manasseh, and Ephraim who were adopted in Egypt. The United States of America fulfills many prophecies that will be reviewed under 1776 AD. During this time, the Saxons of Germany continued to raid Britain and invade in fleets. The Anglo-Saxon scholar Bede wrote that by this time there were 7 Saxon kings over Britain, and that Britain had now been ruled by 2 Saxons, a Jute and 4 Angles. The new culture was called the Engaish, after the Angles. The Saxons invaded the west, leaving the continent to sail west to Britain and settle the new lands as conquerors. Concerning the tribe of Joseph called Ephraim and Manasseh, which was also a designation for prophetic Israel as a collection of all the tribes, we read in Deuteronomy, quote, "His horns are like the horns of unicorns. With them he shall push the people together to the ends of the earth, and they are the 10,000s of Ephraim, and they are the thousands of Manasseh." Deuteronomy. The Gauls, Celts, Visigoths, then Ostrogoths, the Vandals, the Cimbri, Teutones, all these peoples travelled westward from Asia into the Roman world, and lastly the Huns, who pushed these peoples further west. This prophecy relates that the progeny of Ephraim would be more populous than Manasseh, and the peoples descended from both will continually migrate and move until they are settled at the ends of the earth, the far west. Genesis reads that because Joseph was separated from his brothers, he would receive the greatest blessings of the earth. Quote, "By the Almighty who shall bless thee with blessings of heaven above, blessings of the deep that lieth under, blessings of the breasts and of the womb, the blessings of thy father have prevailed above the blessings of my progenitors unto the utmost bound of the everlasting hills. They shall be on the head of Joseph." Unquote. Genesis and Deuteronomy. The prophet Samuel wrote, quote, "Moreover, I will appoint a place for my people Israel, and will plant them, that they may dwell in a place of their own, unquote. Samuel. Isaiah wrote, quote, "For the Lord will have mercy on Jacob, and will yet choose Israel, and set them in their own land. And the strangers shall be joined to them, and they shall cleave to the house of Jacob," unquote. Isaiah. Quote, "Behold, thou shalt call a nation that thou knowest not, and the nations that knew not thee shall run unto thee because of the Lord thy God, and for the Holy One of Israel," unquote. Isaiah. Quote, "In an acceptable time I have heard thee, and I will preserve thee, and give thee a covenant of the people, to establish the earth, to cause to inherit the desolate heritages," unquote. Isaiah. These prophecies reveal that the kingdoms that would arise out of Israel would be at the edge of the earth, which at those times was the far west, Europe, a landmass named after a Phoenician princess. These lands would be desolate when Israel came to occupy them and separated from the other families of men. But Manasseh and Ephraim would be further separated from the other Israelite descended families even more. This was Britain, Ireland, Wales, and Scotland, which were prophetically identified as Manasseh. But Ephraim's destiny was even greater. Ephraim would be in the far west, in a land of blessings, more populated than Manasseh, and further separated from all other Israelite peoples. Ephraim would become the land of North America. The fall of Rome in 476 AD was a pivotal period in human history that totally altered the course of events. The collapse of Roman government and civilization was a double-edged sword that gave rise to the greatest enemy of the Western world, the papacy. The weakening of Roman civil power actually strengthened the position of the Roman religious authority, the Pope actually acquiring the powers of a king and later an emperor over the kings of Europe. The emergence of this threat to freedom of thought and expression was not ignored in biblical prophecy. In Daniel's prophecy of the 10 kingdoms after the fall of the Iron Empire, Rome, we learn of the appearance on the world stage of a king of a different kind. Quote, "And the 10 horns out of this kingdom are 10 kings that shall arise, and another shall arise after them, and he shall be diverse from the first, and he shall subdue 3 kings. And he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws, and they shall be given into his hand, until a time and times and the dividing of a time." Daniel. This king is different because he represents a religious kingdom that will oppress the civil kingdoms of the 10 kings. 3 kings will fall to him, known as the Papal States, and for 1260 years he will oppress the nations of Europe. He will claim to be the vicar of Christ, to be infallible, to be able to forgive sin, to have authority to dole out indulgences to the people, to be the Word of God. The papacy, as will be seen in the history of Europe in CHRONICON 2, will be the greatest enemy the European powers have ever known, a fact little known today because of the heroic efforts of the Roman Catholic Church in destroying the evidences of its criminal past. With CHRONICON 1 complete, chronicling the histories between 5239 BC and 476 AD, the history of the world bears out several remarkable facts that are here listed in this conclusion. 1. The night Attila died. 2. Decline and fall of the Roman Empire. 3. Popery, foe of the Church. 5. National Sunday laws.